जय राधा माधव कुंज बिहारी जय राधा माधव
कुंज बिहारी
जय गोपी जन वल्लभ गिरिवरधारी
जय गोपी जना वल्लभ गिरिवरधारी
यशोदानंदन ब्रज जन रंजन
यशोदानंदन व्रज जन रंजन
यशोदानंदन ब्रज जन रंजन
यशोदानंदन व्रज जन रंजन यमुना तीरा वनचारी जय राधा माधव कुंज बिहारी हरे कृष्णा कृष्ण कृष्णा हरे राम 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 हरे हरे
हरे कृष्णा कृष्ण कृष्ण हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे
हरे कृष्णा कृष्ण कृष्ण हरे राम 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 हरे हरे
हरे कृष्णा कृष्ण कृष्ण हरे 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 राम राम हरे हरे
हरे कृष्णा हरे 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 राम राम हरे हरे
हरे कृष्णा कृष्ण कृष्ण हरे 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 राम राम हरे हरे
हरे कृष्णा कृष्ण कृष्ण हरे 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 राम राम हरे हरे
जय राधा कृष्ण चंद्र राधे
जय राधा कृष्ण चंद्र राधे
जय गौरनिताय जय गौरनिताय
जय गौरनिताय जय गौरनिताय जय गौरनिताय
जय जय प्रभुपाद
जय जय प्रभुपाद
जय जय श्रीपाद गुरुदेव
जय जय श्रीपाद गुरुदेव श्रीपाद
निताय गौर हरि बोल हरि बोल हरि बोल हरि बोल
जय गौर हरि बोल हरि बोल हरि बोल हरि
जय श्री श्री राधा कृष्ण चंद्र गोविंदाय श्री प्रभुपाद गुरु महाराज की जय। श्रीमद् भागवतम की जय। अनंत कोटि वैष्णव वृंद की जय। वर्ल्ड ऑल वैष्णव डिवोटीज की जय। ओम नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय।
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 नारायणं नमस्कृत्यं
नारायणं नमस्कृत्यं
नरं चैव नरोत्तमं
नरं चैव नरोत्तमं
देवीं सरस्वतीं व्यासं
देवीं सरस्वतीं व्यासं
ततो जयमुदीरये।
ततो जयमुदीरये।
नष्टप्रायेषु अभद्रेषु
नष्टप्रायेषु अभद्रेषु
नित्यं भागवत सेवया
नित्यं भागवत सेवया
भगवती उत्तमं श्लोके
भगवती उत्तमं श्लोके
भक्तिर्भवती नैष्टिकी।
भक्तिर्भवती नैष्टिकी।
Reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 7, Chapter 2, Text number 22. Nitya Atma Vyaya Shuddha
नित्यात्मा व्ययः शुद्धः
Sarvagaha Sarvavitparaha
सर्वगः सर्ववित्परः
Dhatte Savaman Atmano Lingam
तत्ते स्व आत्मनो लिङ्गम्
Mayaya Visrijan Gunan.
मायया विसृजन् गुणान्।
Nitya Atma Vyaya Shuddha
नित्यात्मव्ययः शुद्धः
सर्वगः सर्ववित्परः
सर्वगः सर्ववित्परः
धत्ते सवात्मनो लिंगम्
दत्ते असव आत्मनो लिङ्गम्
मायया विसृजन् गुणान्.
मायया विसृजन् गुणान्।
Translation and purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada, Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Translation: The spirit soul, the living entity, has no death, for he is eternal and inexhaustible. Being free from material contamination, he can go anywhere in the material or spiritual worlds. He is fully aware and completely different from the material body. But because of being misled by misuse of his slight independence, he is obliged to accept subtle and gross bodies created by the material energy, and thus be subjected to so-called material happiness and distress. Therefore, no one should lament for the passing of the spirit soul from the body. Can you repeat, Prabhu, the translation? The spirit soul, the living entity, has no death.
The spirit soul, the living entity, has no death.
For he is eternal and inexhaustible.
For he is eternal and inexhaustible.
Being free from material contamination,
Being free from material contamination,
he can go anywhere in the material or spiritual worlds.
he can go anywhere in the material or spiritual worlds.
He is fully aware and completely different from the material body.
He is fully aware and completely different from the material body.
But because of being misled by misuse of his slight independence,
But because of being misled by misuse of his slight independence,
he is obliged to accept subtle and gross bodies
he is obliged to accept subtle and gross bodies
created by the material energy
created by the material energy,
and thus be subjected to so-called material happiness and distress.
and thus be subjected to so-called material happiness and distress.
Therefore, no one should lament for the passing of the spirit soul from the body.
Therefore, no one should lament for the passing of the spirit soul from the body.
Purport. Hiranyakashipu very intelligently described the position of the soul. The soul is never the body, but is always completely different from the body. Being eternal and inexhaustible, the soul has no death. But when the same pure soul desires to enjoy the material world independently, he is placed under the conditions of material nature and must therefore accept a certain body and suffer his pains and pleasures thereof. This is also described by Krishna in Bhagavad Gita 13:22. Karanam gunasango asya sadasad yoni janmasu. The living entity is born in different families or species of life because of being infected by the modes of material nature. When conditioned by material nature, the living entity must accept a certain type of body, which is offered by nature under the direction of the Supreme Lord. Ishvara sarva bhutanam riddesha arjuna tishtati brahmayam sarva bhutani yantrarudhani maya. The Supreme Lord is situated in everyone's heart, O Arjun, and is directing the wanderings of all living entities who are seated as on a machine made of material energy. Bhagavad Gita 18:61. The body is just like a machine, and according to the living entity's karma, he is offered a particular type of machine to move here and there under the control of material nature. This continues until he surrenders to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Mam evaye prapadyante mayam etam tarantite. Until he surrenders, the conditioned soul is carried from life to life by the arrangement of material nature. Om Jnanatimirandasya Jnananjana Salakaya Chakshurmilitam Yena Tasmai Sri Gurave Namaha. Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Sthapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamyam Dadati Swapadantikam. Namo Vishnupadaya Krishna Prishta Bhutri Srimati Bhakti Sarup Damodar Swami Namne Namasad Bhakti Manipuru Bhavacho Prabhupada Sadvani Prachara Nrityate. He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute. Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vishwabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye. Vanchakalpaturvasya kripa sindhuvaeva cha patitanam pavane vaishnavebhyo namo namaha. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Srivasadi Gaur Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Srimad Bhagavatam second canto. Ready. First of all, I will seek the blessings of all the senior Vaishnavas and also all the well wishes of all the assembled Vaishnavas and Vaishnavis, so I can speak some valuable words on this text shloka. So here, further speaking, Hiranyakashipu Uvacha, he is saying to his relatives and family members, he's explaining them that there is the soul has no death. He is eternal and inexhaustible. So this demon, he's speaking knowledge, Vedic knowledge, transcendental knowledge. So as we read in yesterday's verse, that the demons also has Vedic knowledge. They have the proper knowledge, but they don't utilize it for good purpose. What is it said? They do not use their good intelligence for the service of the Lord. That's why they are called demons. They are always aiming for destruction, for obnoxious activities, for troubling innocent people, because they forcefully want to be the controller of this world, which they can never be. Ultimately, they will be killed by Vishnu. or Lord Krishna. So when the soul, when the living entity, when is free from this contamination of this material nature, sattva guna, rajoguna, tamaguna, is free from that, then he can go anywhere, because the soul has a power that it can go to anywhere, material or spiritual worlds. No, nothing can obstruct him. But because it's bound in this material body, it is acting in that way. And also because of misuse of his slight independence, we have got the free will to choose what is good and bad, whether I want to serve the Lord, whether I want to serve this nature, material nature, or my mind, my senses. So he has got the free will. So as long he is under the modes of the nature or under the control of his mind and senses, he has to accept again and again gross and subtle bodies given by the material energy, and at the same time he has to undergo various kinds of material happiness and distress. So Hiranyakashipu is teaching that no one should lament for the passing of the spirit soul from the body. So here, because they are also demons, here we read their story in Bhagavatam. They are also devotees, but they came for enhancing the pastimes of the Lord to do their part. So they are also fully aware of the of Vedic knowledge. Even we see in Ramayana, Ravan, he was a great Pandit. He was a Brahman, he was a Pandit, he knew everything, but because of his not using his good intelligence to worship the Lord, to trying to become the controller. So ultimately, he had to be killed, and he was going against the Vedic rules, against the scriptures, against the religious principles. So ultimately he was killed. So coming to the purport, so as we just now read that the pure soul is always pure, being a part and parcel of the supreme soul of Lord Krishna, is always pure, but because he wants to enjoy the material world independently of the Lord, because the desire in him to enjoy independently, he is placed under this material nature, and therefore he is given a certain body, and then he suffers the pains and also enjoys the material pleasure temporary for some time. So in this matter, Lord Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita that karanam gunasango asya sad asad yoni janmasu. The living entity is born in different families or species of life because of being infected by the modes of material nature. So he takes birth in different species of life according to his material desires and his activities. So he gets a certain type of body, and then he enjoys and suffers in that body. So as long he's captivated by this false manifestation, this material creation, which from time to time appears manifested and again then unmanifested. So he has to the living entity has to transmigrate from one body to another. Because of him being captivated by this material nature. So sometimes he takes birth as a demigod, sometimes as a man, sometimes as a beast, as a bird, as a worm, as an aquatic, or as a saintly man, or as a bug. And this is going on from time immemorial. From there are 84 lakh species of life. So he's taking birth in different, according to evolution, he takes birth from one living species to another species. And in whatever species he takes birth, he thinks that I am the master, I am the controller. For example, like you see, the scientists nowadays, they are manufacturing so many, inventing so many things, and they think that by giving this, some of the scientists may have good intention that I give this thing like nuclear bomb or nuclear energy, so it can be utilized in proper way. It can be utilized, but what happens? The general people, those who are there in the administration, in the government administration, they utilize for making nuclear bombs for destruction. The same energy can be used in creating so many things and creating nuclear power, energy. So in that way, some scientists, they think that I have created this, I have invented this thing, so I'm the master, I have done this. So they are very much puffed up in their invention, in their knowledge, and ultimately they don't instruct the invented matter which is handed over to the government. They don't instruct that this will, if it used in a wrong way, it can create a mass destruction. It can wipe off civilization. It can a whole country or living entities. So in that way, all the living entity, they have a conception that I am the master. Just for example, an animal, a dog you see in the street, they have a certain area in their place. So if any dog enters into that area, they bark and drive him away. So they think that I am the controller of this space. So in that way, all the living entities are, all the animals, maybe animal, birds, every living entity thinks that I am the controller. Human beings too. So how is put into different bodies? Because of association with the modes of nature. Sattva, Raja, Tamagun. So one has to rise above these three modes, so he can be situated in a Suddha Sattva, in transcendental position, which is called Krishna consciousness. So when one is situated in Krishna Bhavanamrit, in Krishna consciousness, then then he can liberate himself from this material body. Otherwise, he has to transfer from one body to another till his material desires he wants to satisfy. This change of consciousness, of putting oneself to the transcendental position, can be got how? By hearing from the authoritative sources. So a person, a human being, only a human being has the chance to know, because he has developed intelligence to know from the authoritative sources like Bhagavad Gita, Bhagavatam, from realized souls, to know what is right and what is wrong, what is the ultimate benefit of myself. So if the living entity, submits to this hearing process, so his his long desire to dominate the material nature will gradually reduce, and then when he starts enjoying the spiritual happiness, then automatically his desire to enjoy this temporary material happiness will go away. So in the purport, there is another shloka from Bhagavad Gita where it is said that Ishvara sarva bhutanam riddesha arjuna tishtati brahmayam sarva bhutani yantra rudhani maya. The Supreme Lord is situated in everyone's heart, O Arjun, and is directing the wanderings of all living entities who are seated as on a machine made of material energy. So the super soul or the Supreme Lord, where is he? He is situated in our heart as a Paramatma, as a super soul, and is directing all the living entities according to their desires, material desires, what he desires, and he's given, he's offered what he deserves according to his karma. He gets what he deserves. So living entity may desire many material things, but he gets what he deserves. But all these material desires will not satisfy him ultimately. So Arjun, before he heard the Bhagavad Gita, he didn't knew everything. Means saying that he was not the supreme knower. He didn't knew, because this as a devotee, as a great devotee of the Lord, he was put into such conditions for the benefit of us, so we can to know the Bhagavad Gita, what the Lord wants from us. So this his decision to fight or not to fight was confined to his limited discretion, what he understood from his limited knowledge. So what happens when the living entity, when he changes the bodies from one body to another, maybe from animal to human being, or from one animal species to another animal species, so he forgets all his past deeds, what he did in his previous life. But the Supreme Lord, the Super Soul, in the heart of the living entity, he knows everything. What are all the activities the living entity has done throughout all the different species he has gone through. The Lord remembers everything, and he's the witness also for all these activities. So that's why the Lord, according to the desire of the living entity, he directs the living entity for according to his desire. And the living entity, he gets what he deserves, and he carries his activities by this material body. So when the living entity is placed in a particular type of body, he works according to that bodily situation. So any living entity other than the human being, now he may be an aquatic or an animal or a bird or a worm, anything. So that conditioning of that body, that other than the human beings, so according to the body, that living entity works. If he has got a donkey's body, he's got a dog body, he will work as a preconditioned body which is given. So that an animal will work in that way only. He doesn't have a higher consciousness or higher intelligence to think that what I'm doing in this body, what is my goal of life. He doesn't have that chetana, that consciousness, because of his body which he has got. But only the human being, because he has the intelligence, He has the discriminating power. He can rise his consciousness from his present level to the maybe subdued consciousness or whatever state he is in, a sattva gun or rajagun or tamagun. He can rise to the sattva gun, from tamagun to sattva gun and to suddha sattva. He can rise his consciousness by doing devotional service, by hearing the instructions of Gita, Bhagavatam, by hearing from the realized souls, by following the instructions, their guidance. He can elevate himself. So here the example is given that a living entity, he gets a body like example is given of a car, like a Ferrari car. You see, a sports car that moves very in a super speed. It has a power to just take off, not take off in a seconds, very fast. It can take off and can cover a speed of miles, in hours, like. But in other case, like if you take a Maruti car, if you compete with that, it won't be able to keep up to that standard. So in that way, comparison is given that a living entity, when he has a animal body, will work according to that. But a human being has the consciousness to think. He can do wonderful things. He has the intelligence. So by the order of the Supreme Soul, the material nature fashions a particular type of body to a living entity, so he can work according to his desires. So according to his guna and karma in his past life, he is given a particular type of body. Then he can, whatever desire he has, he can do. He can try to fulfill in this life, in this birth. So if you see, the living entity is not independent. In this planet Earth, he is controlled by the material energy, Durga Devi. Durga Devi is controlling, all the administering all the living entities by the three modes, Sattva, Raja, Tamagun. So, and so ultimately, the living entity, how he is controlled in this planet Earth by the Durga Devi, and Durga Devi is functioning how? By the direction of the Supreme Lord. So ultimately, if you see, we are always under the Lord's control. That is why an intelligent man will, what he will do? He will try to surrender to the Lord by the devotional process. So that is the proper intelligence. Because ultimately, if he has to surrender to the Lord, then why not now? And instead of subjugating to the orders of Durga Devi, the material world and the material desires what we have, and working under the modes of the nature, the intelligent person will surrender himself to the Supreme Lord. The body is just like a machine, and according to the living entity's karma, he is offered a particular type of machine to move here and there under the control of the material nature. This continues until he surrenders to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Mam eva ye prapadyante mayam etam tarantite. Until he surrenders, the conditioned soul is carried from life to life by the arrangement of the material nature. So, until the soul doesn't surrender to the Lord, he is carried on from one body to another. The complete shloka is how Devi Esha Gunamayi Mama Maya Duratya Mama Eva Prapadyante Mayam Etam Tarantite. The Lord is saying this divine energy of mind consisting of the three modes of nature, material nature, is difficult to overcome. But those who have surrendered unto me can easily cross beyond it. So because of our contact of the soul being in contact with the material nature, material energy, his original power is covered. The function of the soul, the potency, the quality of the soul is Sachidananda. He is full of knowledge, he is full of bliss, and is eternal. And that is the quality of the soul. But it is covered because he is in contact with the material nature, having a material body. And because of this covering, he is not able to overcome its influence. So this inferior material nature, it is defined as divine nature, because of its connection, divine connection, and movement by the divine will. So here, because it is said, Deviyesha Gunamai. Why this material nature is called Devi, as divine? Because the Supreme Lord is connected with it. The Lord has created this material world, and he is directing the material energy how to function, how to control these living entities who have gone against the will of the Lord. So this energy of the Lord, material energy, conducted by the divine will, by the Supreme Lord, although it is inferior, it acts so wonderfully in the construction and destruction of this manifestation, cosmic manifestation. And the Vedas also confirm this. Mayam tu prakritim vidyan mayinam tu maheshwaram. Although Maya, illusion, is false or temporary, the background of Maya is the supreme magician, the personality of Godhead, who is Maheshwara, the supreme controller. Svetasvatara Upanishad 4:10. So in the Upanishad, it is said that even though this creation is temporary, manifested and unmanifested, but because the supreme magician Sri Krishna is behind this creation, his divine will is there. That's why it is divine, and he is Maheshwara. He is the supreme controller. And secondly, when we see in the line that Deviyesha Gunamai, Guna is also referred to as rope. Guna is also a quality, Guna, and also it is also here it is referred to as rope. That the conditioned soul is very tightly bound by these ropes of illusion, this illusion of this creation. Every living entity is conditioned by this material creation, influenced, and is working according to these modes. So if a man is bound by the ropes of illusion, then how can he free himself? If he himself is bound, then what he has to do, he has to take shelter, he has to approach a person who is unbound, who doesn't have the ropes of illusion. Who is that? He is a Nitya Mukta Jiva. He is a spiritual master. He is a advanced devotee. The spiritual master only can free us from this illusion. And these transcendental scriptures like the Bhagavad Gita, Bhagavatam, Chaitanya Charitamrita, these scriptures can guide us. So only the Lord or his bona fide representative can release the conditioned soul. Without such superior help, one cannot be freed from the bondage of material nature. There is no chance other than that to free ourselves. So devotion service or Krishna consciousness can help one be free from such conditioning. Krishna being the Lord of the illusory energy, the Lord can order his energy, his material energy. He can order her that you release this conditioned soul from your clutches. And only by the mercy of the Lord, because of his paternal affection as the father of all the living entities, by his mercy we can free ourselves from this bondage. So surrender unto the lotus feet of the Lord is the only means we can free ourselves from this stringent material nature. This material nature is very strict. If one does one wrong action, he gets a reaction of that. Like the laws, every action has an equal and opposite reaction. So we said earlier also, if somebody says that I am a very honest person, no, I don't do any wrong activity, I don't do any sin, then he's a cheater. If a person says like that, because this material nature is designed like that, that person unknowingly also he will do sinful activity. If he lights a match, he will kill thousands of bacteria, microbes. When he's walking on the road, unknowingly he's killing so many insects. When he's moving a water pitcher on the place, there are so many living entities getting killed. When he's taking the breath also, so many microbes, bacteria get killed. So in different ways, unknowingly also, he is doing so many sinful activity. So if he says that I am not doing any sin, that is a very wrong saying. And also because he is taking all the things from the nature, from the mother nature, he is taking all the eatables, all the things, and he's consuming that. So how can he say that I'm not doing any wrong? Because all this belongs to the Supreme Lord, provided by the Lord for our maintenance. So we have to, as a sign of gratitude, we should offer it to the Lord, as the Lord says, Patram Pushpam Phalam Toyam. We should offer it to the Lord and then take it. So then there is no reaction, no karma in that. So Vishnu is the master of Maya. So here the word Mama Maya Duratyaya. So this Maya belongs to him, the Lord. Mam. It's very significant because Mam means who? Who is saying this? Bhagavad Gita is said by the Lord. So Krishna is saying this energy of mine, Mama Maya Duratyaya. This is his energy. And it's not referring to Brahma or Shiva. No, the Lord saying me. So even though Brahma being the creator of this cosmic manifestation, and also Lord Shiva being the destructor, they are not in equal level with Lord Vishnu. So only Vishnu is the master of Maya, and he alone can release the conditioned soul from the Maya's clutches. In another place in Svetasvatara Upanishad 3.8, it says, Tam eva viditva. Freedom is possible only by understanding Krishna. When we know Krishna in proper perspective, in proper way, that he is the supreme absolute truth, and we are his part and parcel, his eternal servants, his eternal seva. So in that way, then only we can release ourselves from the clutches. Even in one place, Lord Shiva, he affirms that liberation can be achieved only by the mercy of Vishnu. The liberation from these three modes and from this creation of this cycle of birth and death again and again. Only Vishnu only can release us. Only by his mercy we can be released. We can be liberated. He says, Mukti Pradata Sarvesham Vishnur Evana Samsayaha. Lord Shiva says, there is no doubt that Vishnu is the deliverer of liberation for everyone. Only Lord Vishnu can only deliver or liberate all the living entities from this cycle of birth and death. So here I may end here. So anybody has any comment, any further add-ons, they can speak, and also others who want to ask questions, they can proceed. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Yeah, thank you, Prabhuji, for the nice and all the points. If anyone is having any question regarding today's class, they can raise the hand and ask His Grace Shyam Kishore Prabhu. Yeah, probably there are no questions. So, if you have anything to say, you can add, otherwise you can conclude.
I think everyone understood thoroughly. There is no doubt. So, yeah, today is a very auspicious day, Ekadashi, and so I would like to speak something on this Ekadashi. Can I, Prabhu?
Probably.
Today's Ekadashi name is Annada Ekadashi. So these Ekadashi generally are the favorite day of Lord Hari. So on this day, if a devotee of Lord Krishna, if he performs devotional activities, he devotes more of his time in devotional activities, he gets thousands of times the benefit. He gets the causeless mercy of the Lord. The Lord is very merciful on this particular day. So devotion can be done in different ways, like somebody can chant many rounds, or somebody can read the scriptures, Bhagavad Gita, Bhagavatam, or somebody can do devote more time for the seva of the society institution, where such continuously the spiritual activities, work is going on. So they can devote their time for helping, for assisting in such seva. And also, if somebody is having the quality of a yogi, or he can do austerity, he can do fasting, he can do complete fasting, or he can abstain from, he should abstain from grains and pulses and just take upavas or ekadasi prasad. Somebody can do full fasting, it's very good, or just take Krishna Prasad, and means the purpose is to utilize less time for our bodily activities like eating, sleeping, these things, and devote more time for spiritual activity. That is the purpose. So this Annada Ekadashi, there is a story that on this Ekadashi, there was a famous king named Harishchandra. Everyone might have heard. In India, everybody knows King Harishchandra. He was the emperor of the world at his time, and he very much strictly followed the vows of truth and integrity. He never spoke a lie in his life. And his wife's name was Chandramati. And they had a son whose name was Lohitasva. So by the force of destiny, the king Harishchandra, he lost his big kingdom, and he was in such a condition that he had to sell off his wife and son. So the pious king his condition was so that he had to accept, to maintain himself, he had to accept the work of a person who was a dog eater. He's very low conscious person. So he was serving that person. And that person made him a guard of a crematorium where all the dead bodies are burned. So he was taking care of that crematorium. So in doing such menial service, still he didn't give up his truthfulness and his good character. So it is compared to a Somaras. The Somaras, na? And all the demigods, Indradev, he also consumed the Somaras. So even when the Somaras, when it is mixed with any other juice, water or any kind of juice, it doesn't lose its ability. It is always separate. So in that way, even though he was in such a very sorry condition, still he didn't give up his truthfulness. So this way, in many years, he passed his condition in that way. So one day he was very repenting, or he was sadly thinking that what shall I do? Where shall I go? And how will I be delivered from this plight, from this condition? So he was very much in anxiety and sorrow. So one day what happened, a great sage, he happened to pass by that near to the came to the king, so nearby. So the king saw him, and because he was very righteous person, so he was very happy seeing that sage. So he went to him and said that the Lord Brahma, he has created Brahmins to help others. As it is the duty of Brahmin to help the other communities, other varnas, to help them to raise their consciousness. So it is also, you also please help me in that way. You being a Pandit, a Brahmin. So he paid his obeisances to the sage. He was the sage was Gautama Muni, and we joined palms. The king, he stood before Gautama Muni and narrated his whole story, how he came to this condition, what happened. So Gautama Muni, he was very astonished when he heard the king's tale of woe, and he thought that how has this mighty king been reduced to collecting clothes from the dead, removing the clothes from these dead bodies, and he's in such a pity condition, and he was the king of the world. So the sage became very compassionate towards Harishchandra, and instructed him that you follow this process of purification. So Gautama Muni, he told him that during this month of Bhadrapad, now which is going on, because this Ekadashi, this day, it will purify you of all the sins. And this Ekadashi is so auspicious that if you simply fast on this day and no other austerity, all your sins will be nullified. So, if you do this observance, you will be nullified of all the past sins. So the sage Gautam Muni said that I have come here because of your past pious deeds. The king has did so many pious deeds in his life. So because of that, the sage Muni Gautam Muni happened to pass by there. So saying this, the Gautam Muni, he left from there. He disappeared from his vision. So following instructions, on this day, Ajay Ekadashi, the king fasted, and by that activity, all his previous sins were completely destroyed. So this Ekadashi has so much power, so much potency. So whatever miseries one may be suffering as a result of his karmic sinful activities of his past life or this life, he is nullified of all his past karmic sins. So Harishchandra king, he was relieved from these miseries, and then so after that he was again reunited with his wife and son. So again coming back to his own position, the demigods, they showered petals, flowers from the heaven to King Harishchandra, his queen and their son. And by the blessings of this Ekadashi fast, he again regained his kingdom without any difficulty. So ultimately, when King Harishchandra, when he left this planet with his wife and son on his subject, they went back to the spiritual world. So here, the Lord who is explaining to Maharaj Yudhishthira about the glories of Ekadashi is saying, "O Pandava, whoever fasts on this Ajay Ekadashi is surely freed from all his sins and ascends to the spiritual world. And whoever hears and studies the glories of this Ekadashi achieves the merit gained by performing a horse sacrifice, Ashvayagya." So, as devotees, we also should today, as much as to limit minimum our bodily activities and spend more time in spiritual activities. In that way, we will be fully benefited. We will be free from all our past karmic sins, and we will rise our consciousness to much higher level, to transcendental position. Hare Krishna. Maybe we can end here. Sanatana Goswami or our Maharaj, they would like to speak something. You are welcome.
We can conclude.
Sorry?
We can conclude.
Okay, Prabhu. जय श्रीमद् भागवतम की जय, ग्रंथराज श्रीमद् भागवतम की जय, श्रील प्रभुपाद की जय, होलीनेस भक्ति स्वरूप दामोदर महाराज की जय।
His Grace Shanti Prabhu ki jai. Thank you all for joining. See you all in tomorrow's class at 7:30.
Assembled all Bhagavatam Bhaktivinoda ki jai.